if you see, I can divide the whole framework into three broad spectrums, which is basically one is driven by Ministry of Home Affairs, and second is our regulator, which is IADI, and third is basically other parties because the company also deal with the data of the people who are NRIs and foreign nationals. So definitely GDPR and other things also come into picture.
Many a times we give our financial data as customers to different companies, and then we worry if that data is being protected, is it being misused. So to talk about this topic today on Finance Made Simple by Canara HSBC Life Insurance, we have with us Mr. Vikas Gupta, who is the Chief Compliance Officer at the firm. So Mr. Gupta, welcome to this talk show.
Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you. So just quickly checking with you that if you could speak and help us understand the entire landscape regarding standard laws that are available in terms of protecting customers and their data, if you can give us a walkthrough.
Yeah, actually, if you see, I can divide the whole framework into three broad spectrums, which is basically one is driven by Ministry of Home Affairs, and second is our regulator, which is IADI, and third is basically other parties because the company also deal with the data of the people who are NRIs and foreign nationals. So definitely GDPR and other things also come into picture. So government is quite active with Ministry of Home Affairs, and definitely there is the IT Act. I don't know how many people know there is the IT Act which exists, and there are cyber rules which have been also prescribed by the government. And even recently, what government studies says that definitely this is a cause of concern, as we are basically using more of the computer systems and we are developing AI technologies also and so forth. So they understand this is something, an area for watch for. Mm-hmm. So there's the latest Data Protection Act, which is going to be tabled in Parliament soon, which will deal with this and lay down the further framework. So that is one part. Secondly, the IADI, which is basically our regulator, prescribed a detailed guidelines and processes what we need to follow on a day-to-day basis. In terms of, it talks about even vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, which we need to do for public facing and internal applications also. And they even talk about the data need to be encrypted. When you talk about Aadhaar data, right? I think everybody must have heard about Aadhaar, how the things got complex with Aadhaar. So they talk about end-to-end encryption, confidentiality of data to be maintained through a different Aadhaar vault, where basically you cannot store the Aadhaar number at all, you have to redact and all those things. So those frameworks are also defined, and similarly company adopts those frameworks and create a very detailed policies where they divide the whole data into three portions, which is the public information like my LinkedIn profile or something is generally available on the web. And similarly, second is your internal data, my company own policy and procedures, who can use it, how much we can circulate, and so on and so forth. Third is basically a customer sensitive data. So let me just explain what is customer sensitive data is, like our date of birth, credit card details, Aadhaar number, and so on and so forth. So those are the highly sensitive information which is very much protected in the backend servers, which are where the access controls have been put in place, who can access it, who can retrieve it, who can talk it, and all those things. So those type of frameworks have been put in place. There are requirements to put a very qualified and trained people on this job, which include a CISO, which is called basically Certified Information System Officer, which is there need to be in every company, who need to ensure the data is protected all the times. Because this is very important, because the data which we are dealing with is both very sensitive, and if somebody misuses it, definitely can cause harm to the customer. And third framework is basically we get impacted definitely by other regulators, be it SEBI, RBI, or even international regulators, where if we are dealing with, suppose I give example, if we're dealing with the data of any European customer, there is a GDPR, Global Data Protection Act, which get applied on the company. So this is broadly the framework which exists, and the company works on that.
But many a times as a layman, because I would not understand the back-end architecture of this, my simple viewpoint here would be that, hey, I'm giving you my data, is it protected or not? I keep on reading about data leaks happening from the companies. How would I ensure the compliance? Is there something that you would like to say here?
Yeah, so I just give you a broad framework how we basically protect. There are two levels of places where data can be made available. One is internally with the system, and definitely we use the vendors also, where some amount of data gets shared for processing of the information. For the data which basically get inputted to us in the form of forms, it travels in an encrypted manner to our applications and then gets stored in a database. Our database and whole network is protected by, I'll use some technical terms, intrusion prevention system, and there are firewalls. And then basically you have internal access control mechanism, which is clearly well defined, who can access what type of information. Suppose I give an example, in our company, the mobile number cannot be accessed by anybody and everybody. There are a set of customers which have been, there are a set of employees who have been basically given special access to access that. Similarly, credit card details are not accessed to anybody at all. Once encrypted, it will be only read by the system. It cannot be retrieved by anybody else. So that is those type of strong procedures which have been put in place to ensure that data is not compromised. Secondly, when we deal with our vendors, so we ensure that those similar access controls are put in place. And at the same time, we generally don't provide them a data in their environment. We keep it virtually, and they process virtually our data through in our data center itself, so data does not travel to them. So that is the way we try to protect overall data of the customer.
So in the event of a failure, are there any remedial measures that have been instituted?
There are measures basically where we can, if such instances are noted, we can basically limit. One is basically how to limit that particular instance so that it should not get widespread. And secondly, definitely creating awareness that what type of data got leaked and all those things, because the anxiety does not get built that really confidential data got leaked. Third is definitely certain is a regulator on this, and also Ministry of Home Affairs have basically created a portal to report such instances. Those need to be reported so that it can be localized. They can localize the problem, and if any other instances happen, because the same data can be used by other organizations also, so they can localize and basically alarm those organizations also.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for this insightful chat. I hope this gives confidence to people in terms of the regulatory measures that are there in place in case any kind of data breaches happen, and how companies are specifically designing systems and frameworks to protect their data. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next episode.
Canara HSBC Life Insurance. Promises का partner.